everyone. Welcome you all to the Investment Management class. I am Impa Beliappa, Associate Professor, Department of Management Sciences, Maharaja Institute of Technology, Mysore. Now, in today's class, we will be discussing Unit 2, Risk and Return. The risk and return concepts, the unit covers concept of risk, types of risk, about return, that is in risk we learn about the systematic risk, unsystematic risk, and also the calculation, how to calculate the risk and return individually and also the portfolio wise. In this, to begin with, let's start with return. To know the meaning of the return, what do you mean by return? Return is considered as the reward for investment. It comprises of two concepts in return. One is the current yield, another one is the capital appreciation. So current yield means the periodical income such as interest and dividends. So if you are getting any dividends or interest for the shares, for the money which you have invested on shares, that we call it as current yield. Another concept is capital appreciation. So capital appreciation means the difference between the beginning price, that is the current share price, and also the previous share price. The difference between that, we call it as the capital appreciation. So return comprises of two concepts. One is the dividend plus capital appreciation. So to have the capital appreciation, you have two more concepts in this. That is, if you deduct the closing price of the current year, or you can take it as current price minus the previous price, then we get the capital appreciation. If we add these two, we get the return. And to calculate the rate of return, if you divide this is the meaning of this. If you divide this by the investment, if you divide this by the investment into 100, then you get the rate of return. The current rate return is always maybe 0 or positive. The return either it will be 0 or it will be positive. For example, interest, if you take interest, if you get an interest, then it is positive. If you don't get interest, then you are not losing anything. It is just the zero sum. But when it comes to the capital appreciation, it has three parameters. Either it will be 0, either it will be the positive, either it will be negative. For example, if you have purchased a share for 100 rupees, when the stock market has fluctuations, either the rate comes up, the share price comes up to 90, then your capital appreciation is negative. There is no appreciation. Or else it goes up to 110, then it is positive. You mean that is the difference between 100 and 110, means the share prices of that particular stock has gone up, or else it's just 100 at any point of time. So there is positive, negative as well as 0. So here we can see the concept of return, where the return is segregated into two components. One is the current yield and another one is the capital appreciation. Current yield, positive 0 or positive, where it has an impact on your income, whereas capital appreciation also has an impact on your income, but it can be positive, negative, or it might be 0 too. Let's move on to the next topic, which is determinants. So here determinants is what are all the components which to calculate and return to calculate a return we need. Okay, here the major determinants of the expected return is time. So longer the duration, higher the interest rate. So if you are keeping a fixed deposit for 5 years, 6 years or 10 years, the interest rate or the amount which you get will be more. But if you keep it for a shorter period of time, usually the interest rate is less. So time plays a major role. If you keep 1 year, you get the interest for 1 year. If you keep it for 2, then the interest rate increases and also you get more income. So time is the major factor which is based on normally risk-free rate, okay, and then the expected rate of inflation. So inflation will also play a major role in fixing up the rate of return. That is a major component which influence your rate of return. So what do you mean by this inflation, where we are paying more in order to buy the same product? Means the rupee value is having depreciation. That's the reason we are paying more in order to buy the same product. That's inflation. So here the expected rate of inflation will also affect your calculation of rate of return. That is what we have calculated about the dividend, capital appreciation and investment. And also the risk associated with investment, which is unique for each investment. So depending on the individual client, the risk is assessed, and based on the risk assessed, it varies from one company to another company, one stock to another stock. This is one of the factor or one of the determinant. And hence this required rate of return, it is risk-free rate plus inflation premium plus risk premium. These are the three factors which influence your rate of return. Return is only your composition of dividend and capital appreciation, whereas rate of return is a composition of all, that is dividend, capital appreciation and investment. And to be considered as a return, we need certain components which is like the measures, how you can measure the return, how to calculate the return. So if you have to calculate the return, this is the rate of return just which I have showed you. To calculate the return, there are three types or three ways to calculate the return. The first one is arithmetic mean return. So you've heard about the arithmetic mean return, where the return is calculated on the basis of averages of different periods. For example, if you have to take an example, we'll say assume there are, this is an example for the first one, which is arithmetic mean return. So if you have to take the arithmetic mean return, we'll just assume 5 numbers, which is, we'll say 8, 9, then we'll say 15, 20, and we'll say it is 24. So we'll say period 1, period 2, period 3, period 4 and period 5. We'll assume these are 5 years and these are the, we'll put here itself, these are the years and these are the returns. So if you have to calculate according to the arithmetic mean return, then arithmetic mean, that term itself tells you that it is an average. So if you have to do average of this, first we'll do the total. So we'll get the total of around 76. Then we have considered 5 years. So we'll say 76 divided by 5 is 15.2. So 15.2 is the answer according to the arithmetic mean return. So this is one way of calculating. This is just an example. Problems I'll do it on a later part of the class. But even that according to arithmetic mean, whatever returns I have considered, that has to be added up, that is summation, then divide by the number of years. So you get the 15.2 according to this example is the arithmetic mean return. Then let's move on to the second method. Second measure, the first one was arithmetic mean. The second measure is holding period return. So holding period return means till the time you hold the security to how many number of years. This calculates the return in a different angle, where to the period held by that particular stockholder. On the basis of that, the calculation is being made. That is called as holding period return. So we'll say holding period return. To give an example for this, we'll take A company. Okay, A company will have 100 rupees per share at a holding period rate of, we'll say, we'll give 5 holding period rates. That is, to take an example, we'll say 18, 22, 20, 18, 22, 20. This is according to 1, 2, 3 years. And you say 17 and 23. So these are the 5 holding period returns. Okay, so 100 rupees worth of share, which is running with a holding period of interest rate of 18, 22, 20, 17 and 23. For this, whatever amount of share is there, that we are going to consider at these interest rates. So I'll write here So holding period return is 100 is the share value, to that will multiply 1.18, that is of the first year. 1.88 means 100 is the basis, 100 plus 18%. When you convert, you get 1.8 into 1.22 into 1.20. Here down will continue into 1.17 into 1.23. So this is the different holding periods, that is 100 into 1.18 for the first year, 1.22 for the second, 1.20 for the third, and 1.17 for the fourth, and 1.23 for the fifth. This is the different holding period returns. To this we'll get around, if you just multiply this, you get 248.607. You can round it off to 249. Sorry, 249. Okay, you can round it off to 249. You have to just multiply the return according to different years' interest rates. This is the holding period return. Means each year the interest rates will be different, and you have to hold it up to 5 years according to this problem, and you get the return. Okay, moving on to the third measure. Third measure is annual simple return. Okay, third method is annual simple return, where in this the holding period return is taken as the base in order to calculate the annual simple return, and average is being made. That's it. Okay, so if you have to say annual simple return is the holding period return by average, holding period return by average, that is number of years, sorry, that is n. So holding period return is 249, will say, and according to the previous problem, n was 5. So before we calculate the holding period return, you have to calculate the simple return. To calculate the simple return, this is what you have got after holding it for 5 years. You have to deduct the investment from that. Okay, 100 rupees was the investment in the previous problem of a company. So 100 rupees, if you just deduct it, then you'll get 149 by 5. This is all the example problems which we have which we are solving, and it is around 29.8%. So this is the return according to the annual simple return method. So here there are three models or three measures how you can identify the return, that is arithmetic mean return, holding period return, and annual simple return. So written actual problems of the question papers will solve in the next class. Coming to the next factor, that is risk factor. Okay, this was about the return. Coming to the risk factor, return and risk are the two railings of the same track. Okay, they go hand in hand. If the return is high, risk is also high. Return is less, risk is also less. What do you mean by risk? So, tumba risk ide anta heltivi. We get these terms with the normal course of life when we use certain terms, or to have an, what do we say, to have an reference, we use the term risk. But here risk means the possibility of loss or injury, or the degree of probability of such loss. Loss agattu ilmo means whether we'll incur the loss or not. That we call it as risk. Okay, it's a measure of volatility. It's not constant. It's a measure of volatility, and it is the difference between the expected return and the actual return. For example, if you say that you want to make an investment of 100 rupees and you expect that you will get 10% return in future for a period of 1 month. So that is your expectation. So expected return is 10%, okay, and 10 rupees. And if the market fluctuations are very much varying, or if there is any recession, or if during the COVID period, the price of the share comes down and your return is only 5%. So difference between what you expect, that is 10%, and what actually is, which is 5%, The difference of 5% is your risk. Okay, or else if you say that you are expecting a 10% return and the return is only 8%, the difference between 10 and 8, that is 2% is a risk. Okay, we measure it in that way, but this is not the actual measurement where we use other tools. I'll tell you later. Okay, so that is about the difference between expected return and the actual return. Higher the degree of variance between expected and actual return, higher the risk. As I've told you, higher the return, higher the risk. Lower the return, lower the risk. So risk can be measured in different ways, but before measuring, let's know what are all the types of risk which we come across. So coming to the types of risk, very important question, one definite question for your exam, which is divided into systematic risk and unsystematic risk. Here, one thing you have to remember, systematic is opposite of unsystematic. Systematic means uncontrollable, whereas unsystematic means controllable. So this, if you remember, it is very easy for you to make a difference between systematic and unsystematic. So when you come to the systematic risk is, I have already told you, it is uncontrollable, it is not in your hands, it is caused by the external factors, particularly the company or the economy of the country. We also call this as undiversifiable, okay, and we also call it as uncontrollable, okay. It's all the opposite, negatives. So we call it undiversifiable, unavoidable, uncontrollable, different names. If you remember this, you can easily define its meaning, okay, derive its meaning, okay. And by the company, it affects to the market as a whole. It is not one company which is being affected, or it is not like one industry being affected. So here, overall, the market is affected by this unsystematic. Sorry, we were discussing about systematic. The whole market is has an impact about this systematic risk. These external risks which are measured usually are calculated by beta. And what is this beta? I'll tell you later. The economy-wide factors such as the growth rate of GDP, level of government spending, money supply, interest rate structure, inflation, all these are the attributes of systematic risk, and these factors cannot be avoided by all. You can try to minimize it, but there is no exact or accurate measure. Excuse. There is no accurate measure to control the entire risk, and this can also not be controlled by portfolio diversification. So portfolio, I've told you, investing in different stocks. By using that method also, this systematic risk cannot be reduced. Okay. Coming to the sources of systematic risk, there are three sources of systematic risk. One is the market risk, another one is the purchasing power risk, and another one is the interest rate risk. So three kinds of risk. When we say market risk, what do you mean by market risk? J. Clark Francis defined market risk as the proportion of total variability of a return caused by the alternating forces of bull and bear market. So when you know about the bull and bear market. Bull market, the price rises continuously to the peak, that is bull market. Whenever the price continuously falls down, then we call it as a bear market. It represents the nature of bull and bear. How a bull, when it pokes with its horns, it throws you upwards. So the share prices are raising. In the same way, when a bear attacks you, it pushes you down to the ground. So it means that the share prices are falling down. So these are the two trends, that is bull market and bear market, and the total variability of the return caused by alternating forces of this bull and bear market, the changes in the bull and bear market, we call it as market risk. And the forces that affect the stock market are tangible, real events like earthquake, war, then political uncertainties, fall in the value of the currency, or intangible factors like market psychology, where the where the psychology of the people will affect the price movements. These are all the different factors which influence the market risk. So this market risk varies with the trend in the bull and bear market. With the fluctuations in the market, the market risk also varies. The second one is purchasing power risk. Here, purchasing power risk means it is the probable loss in the purchasing power of returns to be received. Means purchasing power is the power of purchasing the products. In case of inflation, in simple terms, if you have to tell, inflation is the main reason for causing this loss in the purchasing power of currency. Like purchasing power risk occurs mainly due to the inflation factors. Just now I've told you the meaning of inflation, where you're paying more to buy the same product. It means the rupee value is depreciating. Okay, and this inflation can be categorized in two sets, that is demand pull inflation and cost push inflation. Demand pull inflation means the demand is pulling the inflation or the rupee value to be depreciated. It means the higher the demand, the lower the supply. Means if the demand is more but the supply is less. When the supply is less and demand is more, obviously there will be rise in the prices. When there is rise in the prices, for the same commodity you are paying more to get the same commodity. So that is known as demand pull inflation. Then you have cost push inflation. So here whatever costs are calculated, it might be raw material, it might be labor, it might be the machinery. The cost, there are two types of cost, fixed cost and variable cost. If the cost of the raw materials, that is inputs are like raw materials, labor and machinery. If the cost of this input are increasing, then obviously it has an impact on the output, and the price of the output will also increase. So when you have the difference between the input and also output, which has an impact on the output, then we call it as cost push inflation. Means the cost is making you to push the prices to its peak. So inflation is caused by these two ways, and in turn it leads to the purchasing power risk. And the third one, interest rate risk. So interest rate risk, it is a single period rate of return caused by the fluctuations in the market interest rate. So as I've already told you, there are differences in the interest rates. It keeps on fluctuating. There is no constant one interest rate which will run for a particular period of time. It keeps on changing, and it affects the prices of bonds, debentures and even stocks too. Okay, the fluctuations in the interest rates are caused by the changes in the governmental monetary policy. If there is any change in the monetary policy or interest rates of treasury bills or the government bonds, which are even risk free, if there is any changes in these, or the fluctuations in the interest rate happen. The rise or fall in the interest rates affect the cost of the borrowings. If the interest rate increases, people tend to borrow less. If the interest rate decreases, people tend to borrow more. This is the psychology of the general investors or people or corporate people. Okay, stock market trades mostly are influenced on the borrowed fund. In the previous class, I've told you that whenever you invest on the stock market, and if it's speculation, you normally rely on the borrowed funds. When you rely on the borrowed funds, the interest rate will affect your investment. And if the demand for the securities fall, then that is also one of the reason of this interest rate fluctuation, because the interest rates are high, you're not going to borrow more, you're not making investment more, so obviously there will be no demand for the securities. So obviously your Sensex will be reduced. And also this affects the corporate bodies who trade with borrowed funds. This was the concept where there are two concepts, where is individual is there and borrowed individual is there and corporates are there. Individual, they think of their own perspective on a single person basis, but if the corporate sector have to think as a whole, where if it is running with the help of borrowed funds, then most of the profit, that is if you're getting 10 rupees as a profit example, around 50% of it, if you have borrowed, running with the borrowed funds, then the 50% of the profit will go for the purpose of interest. Okay, they're going to pay to the interest, and there will be less of, there will be in turn it will affect on the reduction of EPS and the fall in the share prices. So these are all the different factors which influence your interest rate risk. And next is unsystematic risk. I have already told you all, it is controllable factors. These three factors, that is market risk, purchasing power risk and interest rate risk, it is not in your hands. You can't fix them. You can't fix the inflation, or you cannot push a product forward. You cannot create a demand by your own as a single person, or you cannot fix the interest rates. This you can't do it. It is for the whole economy or the whole country which is making an impact, whole society or whole market, it has the same impact. But unsystematic risk. Unsystematic risk means it is the control which can be controlled, it is unique, and it is very specular. Means it differs from one industry to another industry, one company to another company. So we all call it as firm specific risk. You can remember it as controlled risk, avoidable risk, and diversifiable risk. You can keep it as opposites: controllable, unsystematic; uncontrollable, systematic. If you remember that, if you keep in the mind, it is easy for you to write in the exams. For this, the events which are resulting in unsystematic risk is the management inefficiency, technological change, availability of raw material, development of new products, labor strike, emergence of new competitors. All these are the examples for the unsystematic risk. If I have to give you with a products example, then consumer preferences. So consumer preferences for textiles will be different from the consumer preferences of your IT products or for your consumer durables. The customer preferences will vary. Management efficiency. The management efficiency of Tata company is different from the management efficiency of Infosys. Right. So this is how the unsystematic risk will affect only a particular category. It might be company or it might be industry. And this can be minimized by using the diversification. So where you can select a number of stocks which are of different nature, one company from textiles, one company from cement, one company from IT, one company from telecommunications. Like this, from various sectors, automobiles, you can select one company. Like this, you can select various companies in the different streams, put them in one basket and make an investment. So if any one of the company incurs losses, that will be compensated by the other company's profit. Okay, so you can group these securities, and these selected securities will perfectly correlate and try to minimize the unsystematic risk. When we say unsystematic risk, like we had the systematic risk, in the systematic risk you have market risk, purchasing power risk and interest rate risk. Whereas if you say unsystematic risk, we have two in this, that is business risk and financial risk. So let's know what is this business risk and financial risk. First, begin with business risk. A holder of the security is exposed to risk of poor performance of business. If the business is not performing well, maybe due to the increased number of competitors, or maybe due to the emergence of new technology, change in the government policies, rules and regulations, or development of any substitute products, shift in the consumer preferables, all these will make an impact on the business risk. If all these factors are negative, then negative impact on the business risk is high. If all these factors are positive, then positive impact on the business and risk is less. The poor business performance affects the interest of equity shareholders. See, If the business is performing low, then the company is getting low profit. If the profit is less, after paying to the dividend shareholder, after paying to the debenture shareholders, after paying to the preference shareholders, what will be left to the equity shareholders? Only minimum percentage of profit which is left to the equity shareholders. So only residual income will be there. That will directly have an impact on the equity shareholders, right? Because in preference shareholders, the dividend will be fixed. 9% preference shares, 10% preference shares, the percentage will be fixed. You have to give them. But in equity, there is no fixed percentage. They may get, they may not get. It always depends on the profit of the firm. And in this, business risk is segregated into two divisions. One is the internal business risk, another one is the external business risk. The name itself tells you internal business risk means within the organization, within the company, which is associated with your operational efficiency. The way you carry out the operations, it influences or it generates these risk, that is internal business risk. To give an example for this, the first internal business risk, let's discuss on fluctuations in sales. Okay, fluctuation in sales means, we'll take an example of umbrella. So when we say umbrella, when is the season? Normally during rainy season or during hot summers, you have demand for these umbrellas. It's seasonal. So other times there is no production, there is no sales. This is demand fluctuation. And in turn, sales fluctuation. There is no demand, no sales. So this can be minimized with diversification. You start your company, one product is umbrella, another product is FMCG. So FMCG products always has a demand. So it is compensating. So like this you have to reduce, or like this you have to avoid. Okay. Other thing is like R&D. R&D means research and development. Research and development means normally what happens is, for a particular period of time, the product will be in boom. Okay, it has got higher demand. But after that, the product becomes outdated. If you say mobile phones, today the phone which you have bought at 20,000 rupees, tomorrow may not be sold at 20,000 rupees. It is only worth of 15 or 16 or 17, depending on the condition of the mobile. Because it has become outdated. Every day you get new technology. That is R&D. If you keep on constantly working on the R&D, then you can get the success easily. Whereas if your product is not been updated, if the company is not updating itself with new innovation or creativity, then obviously it has got high business risk. Okay. Then comes the personal management. Personal management, like personnel management we have to tell, whereas it deals with the human resource, okay, staff of the company, where if the staffs continuously go on with the strikes, lockout, this will lead to the loss in the production, because they are not working, they are not productive. Obviously, when they are not productive, it will affect the company's performance. So if they are going for continuous lockdown, strike and all, then obviously the business risk is high if they are not managing their human resource properly. But if they are managing their human resource in a well conditioned manner, giving them all the facilities and fringe benefits, obviously the productivity will be more. So then they will not incur that the business risk is less in this particular pattern. Then you have fixed cost. Fixed cost is another factor of internal business risk. So fixed cost in the sense that I have told you, there is variable cost and there is fixed cost. If we say where fixed cost is fixed throughout any number of output, okay, the output will, the fixed cost will not change on the basis of the output. For example, fixed cost like rent of the building. If you manufacture 1 unit, it's the same rent. If you manufacture 100 units, then also it's the same rent. If you manufacture 1000 units, then also the rent is same. It does not change. That is fixed cost. If we say direct labor, so direct labor it is variable cost, where per unit the rate changes. Okay, it might be shoe. If you make one pair of shoe, it is paid on a daily basis or unit wise. So those are variable cost. This fixed cost will have a constant effect on the profitability. Higher the fixed cost, lower the profit, higher the business risk, and vice versa. Lower the fixed cost, higher profitability, low business risk. So this is like a chain which is linked from one end to another end. So this is one of the factors. Another factor is single product. If you are manufacturing only one product, that is the single product, then it will affect on your business risk. Means the risk is high. If the product fails, your business fails. If the product clicks, your business clicks. These are some of the internal business risk factors. And the external factors of business risk, I will continue in the next class. So in today's class, we have started unit 2, which is the risk and return concept, and also in that we have discussed the meaning of return, which is an additional income which we get while investing in the shares. Return has two concepts, that is capital appreciation and current yield. Current yield is the dividend which you get as a part of a profit, and also the capital appreciation is the difference between the current price and also the previous price. So meaning we have discussed, and then we discussed the determinants of the return. Determinants of return like inflation rate, risk, time. These are all the different determinants of interest rate. And also we discussed the three measures of calculating the return, that is arithmetic mean return. Then we discussed holding period return, and also we discussed the simple average return, simple annual return. Then we discussed the risk concept. In risk concept, we discuss its meaning, that is the probability of loss, and also we discuss the types of risk, that is which is divided into systematic risk and unsystematic risk. In systematic risk, we discuss systematic risk is the uncontrollable risk, which includes your market risk, which comes up with the fluctuations and demand and supply of the stocks in the market. Due to that, you get the market risk. And then we discuss the purchasing power risk. Due to the inflation as a major factor, you get the purchasing power risk. And then the interest rate risk. Due to the fluctuations in the interest rate, you get interest rate risk. Then we also discuss the unsystematic risk. Unsystematic risk means controllable risk. In that, we discuss the business risk. Business risk in the sense it is the risk which arises due to the inefficiency in the inefficiency of the management in business. In that, we had two factors, that is internal factors and external factors. In today's class, we discussed only the internal factors, which includes the fluctuations in the sales, changes that is fixed cost, and also single product. These are all the different factors which influence the internal business risk. Hope so you have understood these concepts. In the next class, we'll continue with the external business risk. Thank you.